Welcome, listener. How are you? We are glad you're doing well, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about issues in the blindness community. This evening, I am joined by someone who has a very interesting story, and her name is Sarah, and she would like to share with you the experiences that she's had and tell you why our society these days needs to be accepting and why success is the most important thing in life. Sarah, welcome to Aaron's Opinion. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Aaron.
My pleasure. All right, go ahead and get into your story. Um, Tell us kind of based on a lot of that material that you sent me that I listened to. That's the only thing I listened to. So kind of base it off of that and kind of walk our listeners through through your experiences that you've had, and then tie it all together because I think my blind audience and audience members who are not blind or anyone needs to learn from you. So go right ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. Well, I like how you said, that society should be more accepting and understanding. You know, I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time wishing that was the case, and it caused me to not be accepting or understanding of myself, and it caused my own self-judgment because I placed my value on how society saw me or felt about me or thought about me. I had to eventually shift that mentality, but I'll go into my story a little bit first so you understand where I'm coming from. I grew up in a different body. I had a major gender identity crisis, and I've been forced with a label. Everyone labeled me as transgender, and not many people know that about me anymore because I don't look like I'm any different to any other woman. But because of society and my feelings that they weren't accepting of me, once I was able to hide that fact, I did. I hid it and I didn't tell anybody. There were a lot of people in my life who actually didn't know that about me because I had created my own, I adapted society's negative stigma to it. So I attached shame to it. I attached shame to being who I was, which is weird because I was ashamed of faking being this guy that society wanted me to be. I was ashamed of who I was then. And then when I finally shared my truth and stepped into who I truly was, then I was ashamed again. And I said no more. I didn't want to feel ashamed for who I was or who I was hiding, any of that. And I realized that it was attached to that need for society to accept me. And when I went from needing society to accept me to just learning to accept myself, guess what society did? Society started to accept me more. It's funny how that works, but it really did work that way. And I started to learn that the limitations, the disadvantages, we all have our own disadvantages. Some of the listeners right now are dealing with a physical limitation with their sight. That's, what someone would look at as a disadvantage. I was disadvantaged with a mental thing, an internal struggle, an identity crisis that slapped a label and judgment all over me. People ridiculed and judged and hated for no reason. They didn't even know who I was or anything about me, and they hated me instantly. And I got to hear the wrath and the fire and the toxicity on myself because of it. But I have learned that there is no limitation that people can put on us if we don't accept that limitation. So I started to not define myself by what society told me about myself. They might have told me, you're a freak, you're a demon. I've heard that before. You're not what you say you are. You're a liar. You're this, you're this, you're that, you're this. And I had the choice of either accepting that and making that my truth, or saying, no, I know better. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know my morals and my values. I know I have a good heart. I know I have a good soul. I know that all the mistakes that I've made in my life don't make me a bad person. I know that all the limitations and disadvantages in my life don't make me any less capable of happiness and success and fulfillment. So it took a little while before I realized that, but that was a big shift in me, and it helped me become confident. It helped me love myself. And I think the real key to fitting into society and being successful and being happy is about self-love. Once you love yourself, you don't care about whatever society says. You don't care about the limitations that they make you believe you have. You start to realize that you have a superpower. All of our limitations that people see as disadvantages, the real heroes turn those disadvantages into an advantage. And that's what I've been doing. My story now and my vulnerability in sharing it has become something that is changing the world. It's helping people. And it's become a reason for me to be under a spotlight so that I can actually affect positive change on people. And that's what I want. That's how I want it. I want to be able to reach out to more people, and I want to share my story so that they realize that that life's not so bad just because you have disadvantages. You don't have to define your life by your past. You don't have to define it by your mistakes and your limitations and beliefs that you're not enough. You can actually define your life by who you want to become, no matter what your limitations are, no matter what your disadvantages are. You have the power to create the life you want by defining it the way you want, by picking up the pen and redefining your story. Write the next chapters. Don't let the next chapters write you. So,
And I
do you
agree.
have any? Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any
I
questions about that whole string of words?
You're absolutely right. And I thought this would really fit well with my audience because some of them are members of a particular advocacy organization in the United States that for other reasons I try not to make a big deal of it. So because of that, I don't actually say what it's called. Um, because this podcast is heard on more places than I was even aware. In fact, was contacted yesterday by my distributor saying that this podcast is now available in all these countries in Africa and Asia and all over the world, places that I never even thought cared to listen. So I can be a little cautious from time to time about giving out names of organizations, but to say the very least, I will say that there is an organization for blind people in our country, and you probably know what it's. You probably have heard of it, if not know it yourself. And one of the things that they say is that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you in your life,
Right.
and that's 100% true. And in your case, your point that I think is the teachable point is that limitations should never define you. That if you should never be defined by a limitation. And that
Exactly.
the other really puzzling thing about all of this is that I find American society to be incredibly judgmental, um, especially when we know very little about who we are judging. And I don't understand that myself. You know, I've done a lot of traveling. I lived abroad in England for 3 months. I've had a lot of interesting experiences traveling the world, and I will tell you that um, although many people with disabilities may not always be fully employed overseas in other countries because of other barriers, I I have found that the communities in other countries seem to be much more understanding, and they act a lot less judgmental than Americans do. So I do notice that American people are incredibly judgmental as a society, in my opinion, by the way. And I think that's it's very
Well, can
kind of
I say something about that?
please do.
That opinion is judgmental of the judgmental people,
Right,
and
of
that's
course.
that's the that's the circle. And I mean, I catch myself doing it sometimes. I mean, during this whole
Right.
pandemic, I see certain people being judgmental of others who are going out and maybe they went to visit a family member, and it's like, oh, they're breaking all the rules and they're being judgmental. And then I find myself judging them. Why are you being so judgmental? And then it becomes this big us versus them mentality.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know,
You're right. You're right. Thank you for bringing that up. You're 100%. You're correct. It's of course, I mean it from the perspective, from a, I guess, a blindness perspective. I guess it is. Yes, it's judgmental. And I guess I believe it to be true to some degree, to some extent. That I find that people in general in the United States seem to be very very judgmental. of things and of people, and I don't think that's very productive at all. As as that goes. Yes.
Totally. You know, the way I see it, and I've learned this in many different areas of my life, it's we can't control the outside world. We can only control what's going on within our internal selves. So if we are, seeing a world where we're being judged within it, you know, instead of asking, how do they stop judging me? What do I got to do to change them, to change the world, to change how they're operating? I start to ask myself, well, how can I operate within it? What do I have to do to make my moves and not have to worry about those other people who are judging the society that, is making my life more difficult? How can I just operate within it in a way that puts me at the advantage, puts me as the hero, the person that people are going to, because I'm seeing above that and beyond that, because we can't change them that way. We can't look at someone and say, you're being judgmental, you're doing it wrong. That doesn't work. I mean, how many times have you told someone that they're doing it wrong, or that they're being judgmental, or they're being a butthead? And how many times has that ever worked, right?
Never. Exactly. Never does it work. Right.
No, so like the only thing we truly can do is help ourselves, improve ourselves. And when we improve ourselves, and this is why I brought up, my judgment against them is just me being judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
If we take inventory of that and we help ourselves say, we don't have to judge the judgers, because that's just doing the same thing in a different way, thinking that we're better than them because we're not the ones judging with hate. We're judging with, it's the same thing with it's the same shit, different pile. Excuse my language.
No
But if
problem.
we could, if we
This is
work
this
on
this
ourselves.
podcast. By the way, this podcast is marked as explicit for a reason. After I talked to after I talked to a retired correctional officer at a prison, he talked about everything from MS-13 to rape to mental illness. I said, yeah, this is not kid friendly anymore. I've crossed that line.
Sounds about right. Yeah, that would go that way. Yep. But yeah, if we can just do work on ourselves, then that is how we can change the world. Because it's leading by example. If we can
Sure.
be the example of there doesn't have to be an us versus them mentality. We are all different. We all have different points of views and different opinions and different maps of reality that we've created through different experiences and different types of learning. We don't have to change them, but if we can work on ourselves and improve and be better than we were yesterday, people will see it's possible. Just to see that it's possible to go from the judge, the executioner, and the person who is in victim mode and coming from scarcity and lack, and going from that to more accepting, to saying, I don't care what your opinion is. I love your soul. I love who you are. I might not love your ego, but I love your soul. No matter your opinion, no matter your judgment, you can hate me all you want. You can tell me I am limited. You can tell me all these things and slap your labels on me all you want. I still love you. Good for you for having an opinion. Good for you for voicing it, being strong enough to voice it, and not caring what others think. Good for you. I respect your opinion. I just don't accept it.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I've had to do a lot of growth through pain, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that when we have these disadvantages and limitations and these labels and stuff, we're put into a position of growth, and that's the way I like to see when we're dealing with challenges and roadblocks and limitation and stuff. We are blessed with an opportunity to grow and be better. And it's unfortunate that some of us take these situations, and I mean, I say it coming from a place where I've been there, where I've taken these situations, the judgment, the hate, all that stuff, and I let it hurt me. I let it belittle me, make me feel small, take away my confidence. I let it hurt who I am. And I realized that was not doing anything for me. And I don't want to live like that. I want to live in a fulfilling and enriched life. So of course you got to ask yourself, well, how do I do that? How do I live in a fulfilling and enriched life? Well, the first thing is not letting other people's opinions of you and their labels and their slapping of the limitations on you, letting them affect you, or accepting them or taking them on.
Sure.
When someone tells me
Exactly.
I'm a freak, how long I actually accepted that? I'm a freak. That's what everyone tells me. So I guess